Let's start with the obvious one, the champion hurdlers. And obviously, as Fitzy has already mentioned, Constitution Hill is going to be top of the list for everyone. In fact, Fitzy, do we need to discuss this division?
No.
Is Constitution Hill in a totally different league?
Look, I think he is. I think it was not a surprise to me that they stayed over hurdles with him. I think when you've got a horse that is so good at that job, I think he can go on and do something that the great Isterbrak wasn't able to do and win 4 of these. I really do. And like I say, he is a crowd pleaser. And it's amazing when I'm looking at some of his races last night, you go back and watch him beat John Bon in that Supreme Novices Hurdle, and you forget just how easily he won that Supreme Novices Hurdle. And then you watch him at the Champion Hurdle this year, and some of the angles that they showed of him jumping the last, just for a split second your heart was in your mouth when he let go. Had he have been a horse that was tiring, he would have ended up on the floor, the stride where he came up from. But I just think he's a very, very good horse, and you need horses like him to stay sound. You need them to keep performing, and he's not going to have it all his own way, but the horse that's third favourite there, State Man, he gave him a pretty good spanking last year.
So 99% of racing is about betting, really.
Yeah.
But then occasionally a horse comes along, a Frank or a Constitution Hill, where the betting is irrelevant, because no one's going to be backing Constitution Hill at 4-9 for the Champion Hurdle right now, or if they are already very rich. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is a horse that's important for the sport. It's a horse that, if he keeps breaking records, could put us even on maybe the front pages rather than just the back pages. So for those who are just saying, OK, well, that's boring, the odds-on favourite's going to win the Champion Hurdle, I've got no need to talk about that. Why is this horse more important than just having a fiver on a horse and trying to find a winner?
In this game, we need stars, and we need stars who perform, get people excited. And, you want to turn around to the guy next to you and say, I was there when he won. And a lot of people last year, when they saw Constitution Hill, they would have seen him for the very first time. Now, if you see a horse like him for the very first time, you want to see him win by a street. You want to see him let fly at the last. And you want to be able to say to lads, in 10 or 15 years' time, you want to see the jump he made at the last. That's what we want people to see. And we need to get people excited. And yes, it is. You love to have a bet. And there is plenty of action in that market for horses to be placed behind him. But I think this horse is special. And I want to see people turn up and watch him and be able to say to their grandchildren, I was there when I saw him win his second Champion Hurdle.
He is special, Kevin, as are you. But let's just talk about two that might be able to put something up to him at some stage. IMPAIRE at PASSE has looked pretty good, and Marine Nationale, his connections are very bullish. They're quite happy to take on Constitution Hill at any time. Is there anything in the form book that suggests those connections should be bullish about taking on Constitution Hill, or do we just have to accept that he is in a different league?
Look, the form book says that Constitution Hill is a mile clear of everything that we've seen over hurdle so far. Like, as Fitzy says, like, he does look special, and really, like, pretty much every single time we've seen him over hurdles, he's done something remarkable. Like, not just in visuals, but in terms of on the clock as well. Like, this horse has had the clock backing him up pretty much the whole way through, which is what gave him such a solid look all the way through. The only time he arguably was a little bit when he wasn't brilliant, possibly, was in the entry hurdle last year when he stepped up and tripped. But look, IMPAIRE PASSE looked really good through his novice season, 4 from 4, huge amount of confidence, followed them into Cheltenham, and he duly won well and followed up at Punchestown. I don't envisage him having any problems coming back to 2 miles, to take in races like the Matheson Hurdle, the Irish Champion Hurdle, races like that. But he does need to improve, like, literally a stone and more if he's going to compete with Constitution Hill. And it's a tough old ask of any horse, because as alluded to earlier, like, Constitution Hill is potentially not even, like, quite possibly, like, one of the very best hurdlers we've seen. based on what we've seen so far. I'd be with you guys. Like, I don't think anyone was surprised that he's staying over hurdles. I think that was the widespread expectation. Look, a little bit like some of the superstar hurdlers in the past, like he's going to be a victim of his own brilliance in a way, in that there will be plenty of people saying, oh God, Constitution Hill 10-1 on, it's not very exciting, is it? But that's not his fault. And like Fitzy says, he is quite an exuberant horse. We've seen him being very, willing and able to clear away and win by wide margins in a bit of a visual spectacle. So look, we'll look forward to seeing him. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of opposition to him. Certainly up until Cheltenham at the very least. And will there be meaningful opposition against him there? Time will tell. But we should appreciate this horse. Like, he is something special, and we don't see the likes of him very often. Hopefully he stays sound for many, many seasons to come, and he can build a body of work that puts him up there with the greats that we've seen over hurdles.
I'm just interested, Kevin, Matt mentioned Marine Nationale. I think if there is a horse that could really tackle him on the visuals that we saw in the Supreme, it could be Marine Nationale, but I believe he's going steeplechasing.
Yeah, that's what they've said, I believe. Yeah, he's going to aim towards the Arkle. Matt isn't very up to date on the news cycle, clearly, which is a surprise, because normally you turn up for these things, Fitzy, and you can always trust Matt Chapman to have meticulously prepared and really taken in the running order and know exactly where he's going and what he's doing. So I'm sure that was just a temporary blip. We won't see any more of that for the rest of the show.
Well, let's hope he doesn't fall on his chasing debut and then go back hurdling. Hey, Kev, which can often happen, and then we can replay this back later in the season. And just to put you in your place, because I do some research, unlike you two, and do put some effort into these shows, I did have a quick message with Rich Ritchie, because I was wondering about Vauban from the point of view of, could he now be a better horse just because he's improved for the flat racing? And so I did ask Rich whether there's any chance that he could just suddenly turn up at Cheltenham. And it was quite interesting, actually. He basically said he's been on the go a long time after the Melbourne Cup, which, of course, he will win. The idea is maybe taking Japan or Hong Kong. Now, what's fascinating about that is if they really are thinking of something like the Japan Cup for Vauban, it just shows how good they think he is. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know whether that was, I presume that's the race he's thinking about. Anyway, or Hong Kong, then have a rest and then come back next flat season for Cup races, i.e. Vauban is now being trained for Ascot Gold Cups and things like that. So I think we can rule Vauban out of this race as well. So while you have brought some news to me slightly to the table there, provided, of course, everything goes well, I have countered that with some news about Vauban as well, Kevin. So I feel as a team, we're playing well together, even though as a team you have just tried to stitch me up rotten, which is not typically how teams get on well. But anyway, good luck with that for the rest of the show. You are watching the At the Races Jumps preview show on YouTube and Facebook. Let's get on to the Champion Chase division.
Well, hold on, Matthew. I can give you one at a very big price for the Champion Hurdle.
Oh, can you? Having said Constitution Hill is a good thing, you're now going to tell me to back something else at a big price.
Yeah, well, the one I'm going to mention is 66-1, and if you were to back him each way and he finished a distant second to Constitution Hill, you're still going to get a fair old payout. So it's probably worth mentioning, and he'll be interesting because I reckon we're going to see him on Saturday, in the Cesarewitch, and it's Pied Piper, Gordon Elliott. He's 66-1 for the Champion Hurdle. He's going to have a great chance in the Cesarewitch, and in fairness to him, he's rated 157 over hurdles. Which is higher than the vast majority of these, maybe with the exception of Stateman. And he should have won at Cheltenham last year. For me, I'm still a bit sour about it. I fancied him in the County Hurdle. We know subsequently that Davy Russell was physically compromised at Cheltenham. He wasn't at his best, and if he had been at his best, I suspect Pied Piper would have won, and that would have been a fair performance off a mark of 154. So I just wouldn't be surprised now if he could maybe compete with Stateman in Ireland. I know he finished behind him a couple of times last season, but that was in that that second season for a juvenile over hurdles. And I just wouldn't be surprised if he can come forward a bit and potentially get in the mix in the race, because I suspect when we get there, the Champion Hurdle won't be a particularly big field, and if he can come through his races through the season and be competitive, that 66-1 could potentially be a nice bet to have in your bag.
I couldn't think of a worse bet. You're absolutely right. Well, no, actually, you're absolutely wrong. He didn't meet Stateman a couple of times. He met him 3 times, actually. And in those 3 times, he was mathematically beaten over 110 lengths if you added up the 3 performances. But anyway, look, the great thing about this show is, Kev, it is a game of opinions. And thanks for your contribution on the top hurdlers.